Hi, guys. This is Kayla.
This is Becky, and we're with A Couple of Beasts Read. And we, this week, are so excited because we reviewed Twisted yesterday, and we have Maggie Giles with us today for an author interview. Maggie, welcome to A Couple of Beasts Read.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I just want to jump right in here because I love the book. I want to say that it was very interesting. Twisted is a perfect name for it because there were so many twists in there. It just kept me just going on and on. I got to see what happens next and next and next. So, Twisted has elements of thriller, mystery, suspense, maybe even a smidge of horror in there. So how would you say, what genre do you write in, and does this fit in?
So, I myself consider all my writing, I kind of call it thrilling women's fiction. My debut novel was a women's fiction with suspense thriller, and most of my books tend to lean that way. Twisted is definitely more of like a crime thriller. It's been called a police procedural, bit of a mystery. So that's sort of the genre it falls into. Really kind of thriller suspense is sort of my focus, I think.
Okay. Well, and I can definitely see that. Like, it was very suspenseful at parts, and I have to say I loved the big twist in there. It kind of hinted, and at one point I thought, wait a minute, is this really happening what I'm thinking, and it was, but to such a bigger degree than I was expecting, So
we're not going to talk
about it because we don't want to spoil it for anybody. So
people have to read the book.
That's right. They have to get the book and read the book. So I know journey in becoming an author, having worked with my daughter-in-law here, it's different for different people. So what was your journey in becoming an author like? When did you start writing, and how has your writing changed through the years?
So I am one of those annoying people who says I've written my whole life. I honestly have. My sister actually has a little story I wrote for her when I was probably about 6 or 7 while she was away at camp. It's really terrible. There's a lot of plot holes, but I did draw some artwork, which is also really bad. But I kind of started taking writing seriously back in my early 20s. I had been backpacking with one of my best girlfriends at the time, and she kind of challenged me to write my own story, which I didn't think was going to ever go anywhere until I kind of got back from this trip, and I was put in touch with another Canadian author who kind of talked me through the process of like revising and querying and finding an agent and getting a publisher. And it was all very, very overwhelming. But the first time I was also kind of like, oh, like I could maybe have a book published. And her name was Genevieve Graham. Her and I are still in touch. She's this wonderful Canadian historical author. And she really put me onto this critique website called Scribophile because I have zero formal training in writing. So I had to spend a very big portion of my first sort of writing a novel learning how to write properly, because I always joke my first book, when I finished the first draft, was over 170,000 words, which basically means I did not know how to tell the story properly.
War and Peace.
So, it's been something that's really grown and changed. And when I signed with my publisher, Rising Action, I had been querying my debut novel for probably about 2 years, and like on and off, not really kind of consistently, because when you're in query trenches, you kind of go for a bit and then get disheartened, so you stop, and then you go back and do it. And yeah, ever since then, it's kind of been that journey upward. And so Twisted, I actually wrote probably about at the beginning of my career, probably about 10 years ago, and really Rising Action revived it and breathed new life into it, made it much better.
That's awesome. That sounds very interesting. So how do you come up with your ideas? You said Twisted was like 10 years ago. How do you come up with your ideas, and then how do they proceed from the concept to your finished product, your novel?
So we talk about like pantsing and plotting in writing, and sort of for people that don't know that, it's either you kind of write by the seat of your pants or you plot out your story. I kind of consider myself a bit of both, and I know a lot of writers do. I find when I'm kind of thinking up ideas, I usually have a general overview of what I want my main character to be, or what I kind of want the sort of main arc to be. And then I find as I kind of start writing that part of the story, a lot more elements come to me, and I find parts of the story that didn't work as maybe I originally had planned. And so that really will help form and educate the idea a bit more. So they're always evolving. And sometimes they come from the littlest things. Sometimes it's just a friend saying something. Like, I've written a recent novel based on my friend's dating history because she thought it was hilarious and was like, "I'd love to see you write something about it." And I'm like, "Okay, let's see what we can do." So it's very loosely based on it, but it was a trigger idea.
How did your idea about Twisted come up?
So that one particularly came up because of a best girlfriend of mine at the time had challenged me to write a story about myself, her, and another girl's alter egos, which were put into the book as Melanie, Jackie, and Candy. Uh-huh. I would like to say that, preface that none of those characters are like any of us at all.
That's probably a good thing.
Right. But they, that was really where the story kind of started to spiral. And then more of the details and the mental health element came from some ideas I'd just kind of been thinking about for a while and really wanted to tie in.
Oh, that is great. Well, time management, especially in writing, can be a problem for some people. And so what is your schedule like, and how do you maximize your writing time?
So I think the really first thing I always say here is that I don't have kids, and I totally respect any writer who has children because I know how much time that takes away from the craft, and I do not have that distraction. I do work a full-time job, so most of my writing is mornings or evenings, or weekends. Weekends are great. I have a football boyfriend, so Sundays are really, really great writing days for me, in particular. But it really kind of comes down to trying to balance it. I got really lucky in the last few years and was able to start working full-time from home. So even taking a commute out of my day kind of changed some of that balance. So it is a bit of a balance, and I definitely go through phases where maybe the writing gets neglected. But I do try pretty hard to kind of fit it in where I can, because I do think it also helps my sanity a bit.
That's excellent. Well, what type of professional writing organizations do you belong to, and which ones would you recommend to, new authors or up and coming authors?
So I have been a part of the Women's Fiction Writers Association since 2014. I actually was doing all of their social media up until the end of, this year, just until about a month ago. Just as it was an organization that had started out about 10 years ago, and we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So I kind of helped them grow, and it was such an amazing community. It's one I always recommend to people if they're writing in that genre. I know it's, not everybody's genre, but just finding a community like that is maybe genre related, has been so beneficial, because it's really where, one, I saw a lot of other people's careers grow, and everybody kind of gives back. So there's all these people that kind of do well, and then they turn around and they want to help you do well. So WFWA has definitely been one that I've always really loved. And then I've recently been able to join the International Thriller Writers because of Twisted. So I'm really excited to kind of explore that one, and maybe attend Thriller Fest if I'm not too intimidated, because apparently it's a very massive conference.
Wow. Well, how do you grow a writing community? I know I saw listened to an interview with you on a podcast, and you talked a lot about building a writing community. How do you go about doing that?
So honestly, it's just really about every sort of friendship you can think of. Like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's a lot of reading each other's work. Sometimes it just starts with critique partners. And sometimes it is just like this organization. I find with WFWA, especially because they have so many places where you can volunteer, just even volunteering more and getting more involved in an organization kind of makes you more well-known, and in turn kind of brings you into more positions to meet people. And just kind of trying to take advantage of the communities around you and people that are inviting you in. I will preface this and say, I know I'm also a very extroverted person, and not everybody is. So I say this knowing that it does come easily to me than, for others sometimes, but it really is the most beneficial part because you never know who's going to be in a position that they can kind of give you a hand. And in turn, like, it feels really good to see other people that you've worked with and supported kind of get their chance and their next step.
That's great.
Awesome. Right. So I had a couple of questions. First of all, just in regards to Twisted, you do a fantastic job of writing these believably flawed characters. I love how Mel goes from being kind of abrasive to this character that by the end you absolutely love and you're rooting for her, and like she's kind of a badass. So excellent character. What is your process for making these multifaceted characters, and how do you balance them being flawed but still likable?
Thank you for asking that, and thank you for saying that about Mel, because I love her too. I get so many mixed reviews. Some people still really feel that she is a very unlikable character in particular. I think it really does come down to kind of how people interpret it. I do try really hard to put some balance in. I will also totally credit my editors who helped me add more. Mel was definitely a very abrasive character, and you do root for her because she does have a very tough time, as you kind of come to learn, but it is hard sometimes with how hard-headed she could be about, some of the more sensitive topics that they deal with. But I think it's just sort of something that I've always enjoyed about a character. I don't think everyone has to be perfect. I don't think a character has to be even necessarily super kind for people to like them, as long as they can understand them, especially from a reader's standpoint. So I think that's sort of where I try to work with those characters, that if I'm going to give them those more negative side, I can kind of try and make it understandable to the people reading.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of characters, there are quite a few in this book. Mm-hmm. Like, very important characters, and at first they don't seem connected, but then you bring it all together in the end. How did you manage such a large cast? Like, do you keep notes on each character? Like, how did you do this? Please, I need to know.
So before it was 3 points of view, it was 7 points of view. So that is where first of all it happened. And I was given very good advice to condense it down to 3. I do have a lot, it's actually pretty funny because I have some photos that I've sent to I call her my muse. She's my best girlfriend who encouraged me to write my first book. I have photos I sent where I literally have like pictures on my wall. It's like almost like a mind map of how each character connects and like everything I need to know about them, because especially writing the different viewpoints and trying to keep what each character knows in order, it does help. And I can say that I wrote a follow-up to Twisted that comes out next year, and same thing, it's 3 points of view where I had to write out exactly what is happening, exactly what each character knows, and kind of had to separate it out into almost 3 different books before I put it together as one.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, I wondered the same thing, because as I went through, and it's so hard not to say because you don't want to give it away, but it just because I will say that I did not like Mel at the beginning of the book at all. I
totally understand that.
I was like, what in the world is wrong with this woman? Because I've always been accused of trying to mother the world, but I wanted to get Mel and go, okay, honey, look, this is what's got to happen, But then as I got in the book and I understood her more, I really liked her. And as I said in my review, I don't fault her at all, because
don't give it away.
Don't give it away. Thing, that ended up happening. And anyway, okay. Enough of that. So what are you working on now? You mentioned Wicked, and I'm so excited because when I got through the end, I was like, oh my gosh, when is it coming out?
So are you working on edits for that, or is there a third one in the works? What's going on?
So we have finished edits as far as I know right now for Wicked, unless it comes back. It totally could. It's still a year away, so I could still see it in the next couple months. But
a year away. I've got to wait a year.
maybe I'm done. And I love that you say that, because I actually had a friend who I hadn't seen in a few weeks come by, and she had been reading Twisted, and so she got to my house and she's like, "Oh, I only have like a few pages left from the end." I'm like, "Oh, okay, good. So you're not going to want to kill me yet." And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, I might be getting some complaints.
Hey, that is the way it is, you know. As our littlest one says, she says, "It is what it is, and you don't pitch a fit."
Exactly. So it's only 1 year. I assure everyone it is coming out. If you haven't noticed or found, and I tell this to everyone, there is the first chapter of Wicked in the back of your Twisted book. So you can read that first chapter, and it'll give you a little bit of insight into whose point of view you're going to get to see in Wicked.
I don't know if I'm ready to do that or not, because then I'll just want more and I'll want it faster. You know, we do review books and we love arcs. So just putting it out there ahead of time.
We can make that happen.
Okay. Yay. So what is your best advice for authors, whether they're young authors just beginning, or, you know, just kind of, they may be struggling along. Maybe they've had a book published and it's still not what they want it to be. What would you say?
Perseverance, keep at it. I know it's hard sometimes because, man, it's easy to doubt ourselves and feel like we're not getting what everybody else is getting. But, you know, whenever you see those people that are picked for the awards or those bestsellers, you don't see kind of how they felt before that came out, where they were before that big thing happened for them. And in a lot of cases, they worked for years or they struggled for years. And you just kind of have to really keep trying. Like, your story matters, and it's important for you to tell it. And then don't take yourself too seriously. Not everyone's going to love you. We're going to try, but not everyone will. And you just kind of have to remember that just because it's not for one person doesn't mean it's not going to be for the next person. And don't read your reviews.
Yeah. Hey, you're right. I won't read them either, because I'll be the one that goes after the people if they say things about her book coming up, you know. So, well, tell us, what are your favorite authors?
Oh, I have quite a few. I will preface and say Twisted was definitely inspired by a very old Mary Higgins Clark. So if you have not read any of hers, I highly recommend, though most people have. Yes. I was heavily inspired by Philippa Gregory, who is a historical fiction writer of mostly her Tudor series and her Cousins War series. My first book was a story about Anne Boleyn. So very, very off brand, but it was part of it. And then, you know, I've always really loved Taylor Jenkins Reid. She's just always been an amazing author, one that I've kind of really enjoyed watching her career grow. So yeah, hopefully those work.
That's awesome. Well, anything you want to leave us with?
I think, you know, I really appreciate you guys reading and having me on, and anyone who's listening, if you're writing, keep at it. If you're reading, check out my book.
Well, Maggie, it has been such a pleasure to talk with you. And I want to encourage all of our followers out there, if you haven't picked up Twisted, please do. I mean, it will keep you on the edge of your seat, and I think you will truly love it. And like she said, it's got another one coming out, and I always love a prolific author who keeps giving me what I love. So
the link will be in the comments underneath. So check that out. And if you have any questions, as always, leave a comment.
Thank you so much, Maggie.
Thank you.
Bye.